I do hate stats. I really do.
I'll remember this.
At their core, I do not like stats. I try to come up with a different argument away from stats because just think about it from a conceptual standpoint for a moment.
I love stats.
You watch the game.
Thank you, Peter.
Where do you get the stats? I get the stats on the internet.
Footballreference.com.
Right. So that means that happens after the game. That means I'm acting like I can experience the game on my computer on a Tuesday. I can't experience the game on a computer on a Tuesday. I can experience the game on a television set on a Sunday or whatever. And I just think that too often the stats don't tell the story. I used to hate the name of that ESPN show, Numbers Don't Lie. Yeah, they do. All the time they do. And so if you're just joining us, the reason I bring that up is it feels to me like we are still in a now national debate over whether or not Kyle Shanahan used Steve Wilks as a scapegoat. Jason Luckin for it today on Twitter called Kyle Shanahan an eternal scapegoater. Sean Merriman, not Sean Marion. He had a funny looking three-point shot. Yeah, he was great. Sean Merriman on Twitter quote tweets the firing of Steve Wilks and says, I don't understand this one. Clarence Hill Jr., who covers the Cowboys, comes out and lists all the things that you don't blame Steve Wilks for. Luter's foot and Burford the wrong way and Mahomes and the decision in the OT or whatever.
Right.
All the things. And I'm like,
McCaffrey fumble.
Are we all still there? Like, are we processing this as Kyle's blaming Steve Wilks for the Super Bowl loss? That never even occurred to me. I don't think that had anything to do with it at all. And what's sort of gaining steam as this like snooty comment on social media is, well, if you watched 49er games, you'd understand why Steve Wilks is not the DC anymore. And I agree with that. I also understand how it comes off very high and mighty.
Of course.
Oh, thanks, Clarence. You never watched the games. But it's a correct statement. You never felt good about the Niner defense all year. And it's not blaming Steve Wilks. It's simply two philosophies that didn't go together. So Steve can be an amazing DC. Kyle can be an amazing offensive coach. I just don't know if they can do that on the same team. That's all.
I disagree with that statement about you never felt good about the defense all year. You felt great about them in the first 5 games. So if you look at
great. I didn't.
I felt great about the.
I went to the
first 5 games.
went to the New York Giants game, the home opener.
I was there too,
and I was like, "This is good." It doesn't look dominant to me. The seats were good too. It doesn't.
Yeah, I know where you were saying.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I thought that they looked great. They were dominant. And they were 5-0.
Nick Bosa's sack? I think that was his first sack of the year, and it was a complete Daniel just turned the wrong way right into Nick. It was like, it's fine. It's solid. And you're right. There were moments.
I thought it was better than solid and better than fine. And, maybe it was the opponent, but when they beat Dallas 42-10, I think we all were thinking.
Good game.
We all were thinking this defense is best in the NFL. They're elite. And if the offense can do that and the defense plays like this, Super Bowl or bust. And I think that's what many people were thinking.
Well, let me rephrase it, because there were a couple games where you felt that way. I felt that way against Jacksonville as well.
Yeah.
However,
I felt that way up until about December.
Whenever we would use the statement, they're the best defense in the NFL, looking back on it, I do feel like a lot of us said that because we felt it should be the case. But way too often, and for me, I'm specifically talking about the run defense. And I'm specifically talking about how the defensive line, in my eyes, never looked like you thought it should look. That's what I thought. I mean, come on. We said it all year. Why is Nick Bosa, why does he look like this as opposed to the way he looked the year before? No?
Well, he didn't look dramatically worse. I think he looked a little bit worse. And he's coming off a year where he was the best defensive player in football. So I think if you look at just the games in general and you watch him play, he was if you give him an A for last year in his DPOY year, he was a B, maybe a B plus. He wasn't a C or a C minus. You look at Javon Hargrave, I think he was a little bit more of a disappointment.
Agreed.
And then the left defensive end spot, whether it was Chase Young or Gregory, Cleveland Farrell was good, but other than that, their defensive line was not as disruptive as we would have thought. But I look at their defense for the first half of the year, and I think this defense was the best defense in football.
At no point did I look at the defense and go, it's as good as it should be. I never thought the production matched the names. I just didn't. Never felt that way. Did I think it was good enough to win a Super Bowl? Yeah, I did. This is
and they were for 3 quarters.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, and by the way, last year the Chiefs won the Super Bowl by giving up 34 points. Like, it's today's NFL. You don't have to have the best defense in the league in order to win the whole thing. Baltimore bases themselves on defense. How they doing in the playoffs, right? The 49ers had to outscore the Lions 34-31. So, yeah, I thought they could win a Super Bowl, but the whole year I was like, it's good. It's good. It's good defense. Doesn't seem like it's really performing the way you would think it would based on the names that they have. And at no point did I had curiosity, but we've never done any shows where I'm like, dude, Steve Wilks has got to go. Steve Wilks is doing something wrong. There's intricacies to it that I see as a fan that there's no way I can know. I felt all year it was a head scratcher why it wasn't more dominant. And then there was one play in the Super Bowl that, for me, crystallized it. And I won't blame Steve Wilks or Kyle Shanahan, or I'll blame them both. It simply came down to when you hear people talk about complementary football and they need to be a concert and the DBs need to play with the D-line. I think most of us go, yeah, that sounds good, but okay, what the hell does that mean?
Right,
all
right.
Do you remember I think this was the last drive. It's either the overtime drive or the final drive to tie the game, to send it in overtime by the Chiefs.
It was OT, and I know where you're going.
Okay.
Rashee Rice.
No, not Rashee Rice.
Oh.
No.
That's the one for me.
That's a good example. They sold out. They went all the way.
And they played off.
But there was one that was even easier. I think it was a 3rd and 2. 3rd and 2. And the Niners brought a blitz. They're like, we got to go get him. We got to set up 4th and long. We're going to go get him. And they sent everything on the right side of the offensive line. And then Jerick McKinnon was just like, I'm right here, 3 yards away from you, with the linebackers and the other backers out there playing off. And Patrick Mahomes has never had an easier throw in his entire life. He could have made that throw when he was in Pee Wee football. And so he did. And it gained about 10 yards, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Because whatever's happening up front is not married to what's going on in the back.
Right.
If you're going to blitz, the first thing you got to do is go get the hot route on a play like that. And it was absolutely wide open. And that simply tells me that a divorce is needed. Like they're not in sync.
Yeah, to me, that's a scheme thing. And that's what happened on the Rashee Rice play, where you brought the blitz in overtime and Rice was able to go across on the crossing route. It was man coverage behind, and you were all playing about 6 to 8 yards off, trying to prevent for the deep pass. And it was a lot of that, Mark, and it was a lot of that throughout the course of the year where the pass rush didn't match up with the coverage, and that's something you can't have.
You think it was a scapegoat situation?
No.
Kyle blaming Steve Wilks for the Super Bowl loss?
No.
Kyle reacting to the Super Bowl loss?
I don't think so. And I said this 8 weeks ago, and, Guru stole it from me, and everyone wants to give him the credit, and that's fine. This was going to happen anyway. Even if they won the Super Bowl, they would have had a parting of ways, I think, because when Kyle Shanahan comes out and after the Minnesota game and says he knows he can't do that, and he calls timeout in the Super Bowl.
That was the one for me.
Yeah, there was a disconnection going way back this year that was not going to go forward next year.
Should he have fired him halfway through the year?
No. What do you do?
I don't know.
At that point.
Bring in somebody who runs the defense you want to run.
Right. And
which
who
is
that?
what I have no idea.
And that to me is always the thing about any head coaching job.
It would be an in-house thing. You would elevate somebody who's been on the staff for a while.
Fire Kyle Shanahan right now.
Okay.
Who are you going to hire? And you have a whole off season to figure that one out, but are you going to find somebody who's better than Kyle Shanahan? For all you fans out there who want to fire him, no,
I'm talking about Wilks.
No, I know, but I'm saying that this is the example of why you don't fire Wilks in week 9 or week 11, because what are you going to do? Who are you going to hire at that point to keep this championship thing rolling?
Yep.
And they were rolling. They made it to the Super Bowl.
Right.
It's not like this thing was so broken that, you were heading for the cliff. You still were a Super Bowl caliber team, and you made it to overtime of the Super Bowl. You don't fire anybody in that spot.
There is something about this Super Bowl, and I mean that now because the 49ers have lost 3 of these. There's something about this one that's sending the grief process in the other direction.
Back toward anger?
It gets worse every day.
Yeah.
Not better.
Well, the Kubler-Ross model, they talk about the 5 stages of grief. They are not sequential. You don't go from denial to anger to bargaining to depression to acceptance. It's not a linear process.
You bounce around.
You bounce around. And every individual goes through their own process in their own way. And, many of us on Sunday and Monday, it was anger. And I got to bargaining pretty quick, which is you get to that point of, well, what if this and what if that? And even yesterday, what if they would have called illegal man downfield when the Chiefs scored to win the game? Well, then it would have been 1st and goal at the 8, and maybe then, and what if, and could they have, and what if Greenlaw doesn't get hurt? That's bargaining. And then you get to acceptance, and I don't think that many fans have gotten to that point where you can just look at it and go, you know what? And you got there early. Dude, Mahomes.
Yeah. You can still feel it out there. The Shanahan thing it's still going up. The anger, the angst.
Yeah.